just so that we can have it for later. So if you do not wish to be on camera, turn your videos off, it's fine. But I just want to let you know I am recording this. Before I get started with this, I just want to give you a couple of things that are coming up. For those of you who may drop off, our next webinar is going to be the Scrum Master as a trainer, following along on the Scrum Master series. We started with Scrum Master as facilitator. The next one is Scrum Master as trainer. This will be April 16th at 1 p.m. Eastern. And Doug will put the link to this in the chat if you want to grab it. The other thing I want to just call out is we have some upcoming advanced classes. I do not do any of the foundation classes. So if you're looking for any of the advanced CSP levels or the leadership classes, we're going to send you a link. Feel free to ask us questions or sign up. So, all right, so let's get started with this. The 5 P's of product ownership. This is what I focus on. Product vision is number 1. You got to start with your vision. Where do you want to get to? Second is the people. By people, I'm focusing on who are the people who are actually building out your product or the team that's working on this vision. The third is the patrons. I had to find a word with a P that fit customers. So patrons, right? Who are the purchasers or the buyers and the users of this product? Past. You got to learn from your past. Inspect and adapt is key for everything we do in Scrum. So that's the 4th one. And finally, the 5th one is passion. Without passion, you got nothing. So that's going to be the focus of the 5 P's. I'm just going to walk you through at a high level what I mean by these 5 P's. Then we'll open up for some questions at the end. So let's get started. First, we're going to begin with product vision. What is product vision? Our product vision is the core of where we start. It is a short, clear, concise statement that tells us what are we doing and why. It is our true north. It's like the lighthouse in the middle of a storm that tells us, are we on the right path? Are we heading in the right direction? Do we know where we are going? When times are crazy, when times are turbulent, this is when we need this effective true north to help us ensure that we are not straying off the path. Because if we stray off the path, we are no longer going to be able to deliver value to our customers. There are tons of books and articles out there that'll tell you what techniques to use. I'm not going to focus on techniques today. I am a big believer in why, the whole concept of why. So I'm going to begin with why you need to have a vision and what are some characteristics of a good vision. And that's what I'm going to focus on today. So the first thing the vision should capture is intention. What is the purpose or the motivation behind the product? Can anybody who reads your vision, can they tell why you're doing what you're doing? No. Is it a quick statement that tells us the purpose behind your product? I'm going to share a couple of examples here. I'm sure everybody's heard of this, Disney. To make people happy. That's their vision. And I can see those people who have videos on, you got some smiles on your face when you saw this. And that's the power of the vision statement. What is the intention? We want to make people happy. Another very powerful vision statement was from Kodak. George Eastman in 1880, when he founded Kodak, he started it with a bold vision to make photography as simple as using a pencil. In those days, photography was a complicated process. So his vision was clear in its intent to make it as simple as using a pencil. So you get the idea. This is what we want to do with the intent. Are we clear about the purpose behind the product? The second characteristic about a vision is, does it inspire? Does it inspire? The vision needs to be inspiring. It needs to be motivating. It needs to emotionally challenge the people who are working on it. A vision statement is something that stretches you and makes you smile. We all saw what happened when we heard Disney, right? We're like, wow, exactly. That's the product I want to get behind. If you have a vision that can challenge people, they will innovate and come up with creative ideas to fulfill that vision. One of my favorite vision statements of all time is JFK. This was a statement in a speech he delivered. The speech was to a joint session of Congress in 1961. And this was one statement. First, I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth. It is such a simple statement, but so emotionally charged, so compelling, so inspiring. This is the statement that got people in this country to go after their congressmen and senators and tell them that they support the funding that NASA needed to get Armstrong and his men to the moon. That's the power behind a vision statement. How can it galvanize people to get behind it? A vision statement also needs to provide direction. This is not strategy or this is not tactical things. It needs to tell us which way are we going. It cannot be confusing. It has to be clear in where the organization is going. This means that a vision needs to be specific enough to shape what we are going to do, how we're going to do it, and it needs to be broad enough to allow for innovation. It has to be a perfect mix. This particular idea of direction is very nicely illustrated by Alice in Wonderland, the adventures of Alice in Wonderland, and when she meets the cat in the tree. Some of you remember that. Alice is walking along the road, and she comes to a fork, and on the fork there is a tree with a cat on it, and she asks the cat, "Which road should I take?" To which the cat asks, "It depends a good deal on where you want to go." And Alice says, "I don't really care where I'm going." To which the cat says, "And then it doesn't matter which road you take." So you need to know where you're going to figure out strategy. So your vision needs to be clear. It needs to be pointing out to the direction. Jeff Bezos once said, "Be stubborn on vision, but flexible on details." I think that is so brilliantly said. The last characteristic I want to focus on is being concise. Our vision should be clear and concise. It cannot go on and on for 4 pages because nobody's going to read it. There is a statement that I use often when I'm talking to product owners. This is attributed to many, many people, but I first discovered it attributed to the French mathematician and philosopher Blaise Pascal. Supposedly, he wrote a lot of letters. They were long letters. And at the end of the letter, he used to end it with, "I'm sorry for having written such a long letter. I did not have time to make it short." To make it concise takes a lot of time and effort. Babbling is easy. How do you get that elevator pitch to be on point, to be concise, to actually indicate your intention, to inspire, to be directional, and yet be concise? Those are the characteristics that we want for a vision, right? So that's your first P, product vision. In order to have a good product vision, we need intention, we need direction, we need inspiration, and then concision. I made up a word, to be concise, right? So that's the first P. I will hold for questions in the end. Let me get through this and we'll offer up some questions at the end. The second P is people. People are the people who are working on our product. And I'm sure you've all heard of Dan Pink and his 3 things of how to motivate people: mastery, autonomy, mastery, right? You've heard of that. Another book that comes very close to what Dan Pink said was by Diana Larson and Ainsley Needs. They wrote a book called Lift Off. And if you haven't yet read it, I would highly recommend you get this book. It's a small book, but brilliantly written. This book focuses on launching agile teams and projects, and it talks about how planning is important. We all know planning is everything, plans are nothing. So we need to do planning. Diana has this saying that she will repeat every time: failing to plan is planning to fail. So we need to bring in plans. The book actually brings in a trifecta of things that are required: purpose, alignment, and context. It's very similar to what Dan Pink said, right? So we're going to focus on these three things. Let me walk you through what Diana and Ainsley mean in their book here. The first one is purpose. Why are we here? What is the purpose of this team? So you need a team to work on your vision, but it can be any team. It has to be a team that can get behind this vision so that the vision can make the team cohesive. The vision needs to speak to the team. It needs to give them purpose. Again, calling out autonomy, purpose, and mastery by Dan Pink, very, very close to those. The team gets purpose by having a shared understanding of this vision. They know that if we can focus on the outcome during the course of sprints, the output will eventually happen as long as we have our eye on the outcome. So I want to call out two examples here around the concept of purpose. One, going back to JFK's moonshot speech. So there's a story that goes around that during the 60s, after he gave the moonshot speech, but before 69, when the first team landed on the moon, JFK used to often visit NASA. And on one of these visits, he happened to meet a janitor. And he asked the janitor, "So what do you do here at NASA?" And the gentleman replied, "Mr. President, I'm helping send a man to the moon." That's his purpose. How he's doing it is by fulfilling his janitorial duties. So you have an entire organization that got behind ensuring that we got the first man on the moon. That's purpose. Another parable I've heard on this topic is the story about the three bricklayers. This is written in a book by Annette Simmons, where she talks about a traveler came upon three men working and laying bricks. He asked the first man what he was doing, and the man said, "I'm laying bricks." Then he asked the second man the same question, and the second man said, "I'm putting up a wall, I'm building a wall." When he got to the third man and asked him what he was doing, the third man, with a big smile on his face, said, "I'm building a cathedral." So the first man had a job, the second man had a career, but the third man had purpose. What is the purpose? Why am I here? So that's the focus of building a team together. The team must have a shared purpose, not individual purpose, but a shared purpose. That was the first of the trifecta in liftoff. The second one is alignment. So who are we? What are we aligned to? Yes, to the vision. But we as a team, they need to be aligned to the organization, to the product, to the customers, and to each other. That is one of the core components. You may have heard of most Scrum coaches and trainers talk about the I-shaped people to the T-shaped people, cross-functional teams. That's what we're talking about. How aligned are you to each other? Do you play well together, or are you individual contributors and you go, "This is my swim lane, I'm awesome at it"? Or if you're on your IT software development team, you hear a lot of "works on my machine." That's what we're talking about. We need to separate all those out and bring the people together to align them. The most famous story that I can even think of around alignment is the 1980s US Olympic hockey team. If you've not read this, Miracle on Ice is a movie that shows this story. The coach of the team was Herb Brooks. He was brought in to coach a team full of college stars. In the 1980s, the US team had zero chance of winning. The Russian team was the best. We were the underdogs. Each player on the team brought with him college rivalries and their own stardom to the team. And Brooks had this thing that he would ask them every time they would do the drills on the ice. He would ask them, who he would ask them, who are you and who do you play for? And every time the response would be, I am so and so, I play for University of so and so. That's what he would get. And he kept quiet for the longest time until there was an exhibition match they played in New York and they lost. Losing is not the right word for it. They were blown out of the water. And the team was laughing, cracking jokes. And Brooks got so upset that he made the players run ice drills for about over 4 hours. And at the end of every drill, every so often, he would ask, who do you play for? And they'd all repeat the same thing. I'm so and so, and I play for this. It took the captain of the team eventually to step up and say, my name is so and so, I play for the United States of America. It's not enough to say we are on the hockey team, we are in the Olympics. It's about who do you play for? Who do you work for? How are you aligned? Do you come together as a team? So alignment is key. The third aspect in Diana's book is context. Context is something that helps the team identify their own boundaries so they can understand their responsibilities. It helps them identify their own interactions. How do we work together? Do we have a view of the bigger picture? Do we have the same view of the bigger picture? Right. The best example for this is the story of the blind man and the elephant. So 6 blind men were asked to go touch an elephant and describe it. Each of the blind men actually described the part of the elephant they were touching perfectly. So the person who was touching the ear of the elephant said, oh, the elephant is like a fan. Somebody said the elephant is like a wall. It's like a pillar. It's like a sword. All of them in their own individual context were correct. But they did not have a big picture. You cannot, there's a saying, you cannot lose the sight of the forest for the trees, vice versa. You cannot be so focused on the trees, you lose the forest, and you need to focus on the details. It's about finding that balance between the forest and the trees. You got to have the big picture and the smaller view together. So that's the focus on people. Every team that we build together must have a clear understanding of their purpose. We need to align them, and we need to ensure that they have shared context. That was the second P. We did purpose and people. The next one we're going to focus on is patrons or customers. So traditionally, in most MBA programs, at least the one I went to, we were taught how to start a new business. Come up with a great idea, at least the one that you thought was a great idea. Spend a whole bunch of time creating this comprehensive business plan with 5-year projections, maybe a 10-year plan. Then you go find investors, raise a lot of money, and voila, magically things would happen. In this picture that you see of a business plan, look at everything that's around there. Executive summary, mission statement, operations, company background. The one thing that's missing here, the customer. How could you possibly build a business plan without understanding who your customer is? 2 things I'll point out here. Build it and they will come happens only to Kevin Costner in movies. Does not happen to product owners in the real world. And 2, Mike Tyson once said, everyone has a plan till you get punched in the face. And that happens if you build your plan in a vacuum. If you put blinders on and say, I am just going to focus on this and nothing else. You cannot lose sight of your customers. So let's look at a couple of examples. Remember Kodak with the fantastic vision statement to make photography as simple as using a pencil. From the 1988, 124 years, this company, this venerable company, was the leading company in photography. I mean, they created what is today known as the photography business. Yet in 2012, Kodak closed their camera business. This is the company that led innovation in the early 1900s. The problem with Kodak was when everything went away from the film reels and went to cameras that were digital and phones that were digital, Kodak stayed with the traditional film. They believed and they assumed that their customers would stay loyal to the brand. They didn't understand the customers have changing needs. They assumed that their customers would stay. Do you know the first version of the digital camera was actually created by somebody who was working at Kodak? And they were told, nah, this ain't gonna work. And that person then went over to Sony, and the rest is history. So this is what not to do. Don't ignore your customers. Here's an example of what to do. Skull Candy is a publicly traded company that sells amazing headphones, but they are focused on a very specific target audience. The secret to this success is that the founder of Skull Candy, Rick Allen, knows his customers. He understands his target customer. He has created a brand where he focuses on the 12 to 26-year-old. He understands the kind of music they like. He understands the sports they like. He understands that they surf, they ski. He understands, he knows what they need. How will they use the product? What does the product need to become to allow them to be who they are? And that's how Skull Candy became so successful. So here are a couple of things that I would encourage you to understand and learn about your customers before you jump into story mapping and road mapping and writing user stories, right? Figure this out first. Who are your customers? Do you know who they are? Do you sell to individuals? Do you sell to customers, to companies? If they're individuals, do you have personas for them? If you have businesses, what's the size? What's the kind? Are they small? Are they big? Do you know who they are? Even if you sell to organizations, do you have a persona for the organization? Work on understanding your customer. What do your customers actually do? Oops, sorry. What do your customers actually do? Where do they work? What do they like? Their occupations, their interests. You've got to figure out what do they do. Remember what Rick Allen did. He said, my customers like to surf and ski and skate. And then he built a product that aligns with those interests. So figure that out. Why do your customers buy? Do you know why your customers buy a particular service? Do you know why they want to buy this insurance product or that phone or sign up for this checking account? What is it that makes them want to buy? When do they buy products? If you have a seasonal product, you got to know when the season's right for you. I remember working throughout in financial industries, we needed to make sure all the IRA features were done at a certain time. You look at H&R Block, they focus on we need to get all our work done by December before Jan 1. You look at Hallmark, they focus on all the big holidays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Valentine's Day, spend your money at Hallmark Day, whatever it is. They want to make sure they understand when do we buy. And finally, one of my important things is how do they buy? My household, like I would freak out if I had to go buy clothes online. I need to try my clothes on. I need to go to the store. But there's so many generations of human beings that are shopping there. Not everybody buys online. Not everybody likes to go in the store. How do your customers actually do their purchasing? Are they willing to buy online? Then your website needs to be worked on. Do you need a brick and mortar? So think about that. And what can they buy? What can they afford? This is absolutely key. You cannot go ask your best friends or your family members and say, hey, how much would you be willing to pay for this? Would you pay 500? Yeah, sure. No. You go ask an actual customer and say, you have this problem. We are building this product to serve you. What would you be willing to pay to buy this? Can you afford this? I've seen so many products that are marketed out of a market because the price was too high. So make sure you understand your customers. If you do not focus on this, you will not be able to build the right product. So you need to think about what other questions do you need to ask to understand your customers. This was just very high level. You are going to need to dig deeper and say specifically, what questions do I need to ask to understand them? So that was the third P. The fourth one is a little bit of a focus on the past. Now, we in the Agile world, we talk about look back to go forward, learn from what you've done in the past, and figure out how you go forward, inspect and adapt. That's the foundation of the Scrum framework and any Agile things that you do. So why do we not do that when we come to products? We have got to figure out how do we look back to go forward. And one of the key things here that we need to focus on is changing technology. There is just so much technology that is changing today. We saw in the example of Kodak, where we need to keep up with the changing needs of our customers. There is a law called Moore's law that says technology growths and spurts will double every year. And you've seen it in the last few years. Things change at the drop of a hat. I didn't realize that we would be teaching virtually for the last year. What changes have happened because of the pandemic for you last year? What innovations have you done? You could not say specifically this last year. No organization in the world could say, well, we don't work from home. Then they would have shut down. Many organizations that could not work from home did lose a lot. Many organizations, many businesses that could not have a virtual footstep actually went out of business. We've got to focus on this. Another example of a company that went out of business because they didn't look at their past and learn. Blockbuster. How many of you remember Blockbuster? Yeah. I used to love Blockbuster. We had a Blockbuster store a couple miles down the road. I'd been going to the same Blockbuster store for years. They knew us. They knew where they knew what kind of candy I like, what kind of popcorn I like, what movies I liked. We created a friendship, and every time the new movies would come out, they would kind of keep one aside and call us and say, hey, this new movie has come up. It was a social thing as well, not just a place to go get movies. You know, I didn't like the fact that sometimes I had to pay late fees for them, but now where Blockbuster shut down overnight, they went out of business literally. Today, there's one Blockbuster store remaining in the lower 48 states, and that's in Bend, Oregon. One store. Even during the pandemic, that store has stayed open. One. And at one point, I used to remember we couldn't get into Blockbuster because there'd be such a big crowd. Long before we had Netflix, YouTube, Redbox, Blockbuster was a household name. Now, another ironic thing here. When Netflix was not as big as it was today, Wayne, the founder of Blockbuster, he had an opportunity to buy Netflix. And he also went, nah, my customers are going to love the stores. They'll keep coming back for the CDs and DVDs, not reading the changing technology environment, not reading what the customers actually want, not reading that streaming is the way to go, was how Blockbuster ended. So what do you do here? You got to listen. You got to really, really, really listen to your customers. You've all heard of the lean startup movement. There are some great ideas in the lean startup movement for product management. And people don't really connect lean startup with product management. So one of the principles of lean is get out of the building. That means the answer to solving problems for your customers do not lie here in your head. They lie outside. They lie with the customer. So get out of the building, go talk to your customers, ask for their input in all aspects of your product, features, pricing, distribution channels, everything. The focus needs to be on your ability to react to their needs. How quickly can you react to their needs? So if you don't listen to them, you won't even know their needs. Great example coming up. This is from GE. GE's energy storage division. This is their story. They, in 2010, a gentleman named Prescott Logan, he was the general manager of the division. And he recognized that a new battery that was developed by their unit had the potential to disrupt the industry. And he took a pause and he said, wait, instead of the standard approach of let's build the factory, scale up production, and launch the new offering, instead of following the traditional approach, Logan actually stopped and said, let's think about what are the other ways. So he applied some lean techniques. He started searching for a business model and engaged in customer discovery. He and his team met face to face with dozens of global prospects to explore potential markets and applications of this battery. Now, these weren't sales calls. These were not PowerPoint slides going up. These were him and his team going to their customers and saying, so how often do you buy your batteries? How do you use the batteries? What kind of environment are your batteries in? And so on. Just digging into understanding who they are, why do they use it, how often do they use it, just getting to it. With this feedback, this battery that was ultimately called Durathon, with this feedback, GE made a major shift in their customer focus. They completely eliminated one of the initial target segments, the data centers. They said, nope, we're not going to go there because that's not where this battery is going to truly flourish. They actually shifted to a new one, utilities. Then, based on all the feedback, they narrowed down the broad customer segment of telecom to cell phone providers in developing countries with unreliable electric grids. So they went from telecom or data centers to this narrowed approach. And the only way they could do that was by understanding their customers and where would be the biggest impact of this product. Eventually, GE invested $100 million to build a battery manufacturing facility in New York, which opened up in 2012. And it turned out to be a great path forward for the energy storage division. So the impact, you see what happened to Blockbuster, you see the impact that happened to Durathon. Two completely different stories. This quote, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. You probably heard of this before. This is attributed to writer and philosopher George Santayana. And in his original form, he actually said, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. So this is a slight take on that. But inspect and adapt. That is the foundation of what we do. Plan, do, check, act, inspect and adapt. If we do not do that, we will not have good products. Now, the final P is, I believe, the most important P, which is passion. If you don't want this job, it doesn't matter how good a vision or a team or anything you have. If you don't want to be a product owner, you ain't going to be very good at that. That's it, right? So let me get into a couple of examples here. So let's look at some famous product owners. Steve Jobs, Apple. Bill Gates, Microsoft. Jeff Bezos, Amazon. Michael Dell, Dell. Larry Ellison, Oracle. Larry Page, Google, and there are many, many more, right? So these people, in addition to being leaders of the most successful high-tech companies in the world, it turns out that they all share characteristics as well. Most importantly, they wanted to be where they were. They were typically founders of their organizations as well. But these people identified product opportunity. They established strategy. They defined the product. They inspired the product. They championed the use of the product. That's a product owner in the best sense of the word. In some cases, like Jobs and Bill Gates, they also helped build the initial product. Right? Interestingly enough, none of these people ever went to business school. They don't have MBAs or any such thing, but they all had an intimate understanding of the market. They had a passion for finding a better solution. They had a deep knowledge of emerging technologies and how these technologies can be applied to these. And all of these people, when they first began, they possessed a great empathy for the customer, insight into what was possible, ability to see what was essential and what was not essential. They understood what the customer's needs were and their own team's capabilities. They operated from a position and a basis of knowledge and confidence. They defined products that could be executed. That's where this comes in. Right? So while none of them had an MBA, none of them were technologists, these are technology savvy people that they saw how to solve real problems for real people. You got to want that. There's a saying, if you love the work you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Same thing. I started as a project manager way back when, right? Pre-Scrum and Agile days. And when I got into Scrum, my manager at that time said, "Ooh, project manager, Anu, you'll be a great Scrum master." Let me let you in on a secret. I was not a great Scrum master, and I hated being a Scrum master, because what I loved about the project manager job was the product stuff, working with customers and strategy, and that's the part I loved. And when I was miserable in my Scrum Master job, that same boss said, "Well, let's try you in here. Maybe this will be better, your cup of tea." And it was. Until I stepped into the role of a trainer and a coach, I believe that the product owner role was the best job on the planet. And I went to work every single day knowing I was going to be able to solve real problems for real people and not making stuff up. Well, now that I'm a trainer and a coach, I think that's the best job, but product ownership comes a very close second up there. Putting a warm body in a product owner role will not cut it. You can send your product owners to any certification class. You can have great vision. You can have a fantastic development team. You can have customers who want your product, but if you have a product owner who does not want to be in that role and is not interested, you're going to have a shoddy product, because they will not focus on what their job is and what they need to do. So bringing it all back, 5 P's of product management. Typo on the slide. We need to create a good product vision, clear, concise, directional. It has to be the true north for your product at all times. We need to build a team that is motivated and can get behind it, that they have purpose, alignment, and context around this vision, and they want to be where they are. We need to understand our customers. Why do they want this? What are their problems? That goes back to real people, real problems. I read in a book around product ownership. It was a book written by Diana Kander called All In Startup. In that, she says, you want to help your customers? Go talk to them and figure out, what is your migraine? Everybody's got a pill for a headache. Go find your customer's migraine. That's how you're going to be truly successful in product. The 4th P was paying attention to the changing needs of the customers, changing technology, and finally, you gotta want to do the job. So that's my thing. So thank you for listening to me. Let me see if we have any questions. Do we have any questions?
If you have a question, you can just come off mute
Yeah,
and
come
ask.
off mute and ask me. All right, so I'm going to ask you for another thing. So remember, next webinar coming up in April, if you want classes. So what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to use the chat window for this, if you wouldn't mind. So what is one thing you learned from today? What's the one big takeaway you have from this session? Just type it in the chat window. What's your aha from the session today? Take a couple of seconds, type it in, and then I'm going to have.
You can say none.
And you can say none. You can say, I know you didn't give me any ahas today. That works
So,
too.
in lieu of a survey, we're looking for feedback.
Yeah.
In the chat.
To give you guys a couple of seconds to do that. Awesome.
Having a passion.
Having a lift off. Buy the book. Best thing I ever did a few years ago. Importance of passionate product owners. Absolutely. Business plans don't mean crap. Exactly. You want to have to be where you are. The key to looking at the past to move forward, reinforcement, intention, purpose, passion. Thank you, Linda, for my long hair comment. I love that. This is COVID hair, people. Clear, meaningful vision. Putting a warm body in the PO roll will not cut it. It's actually harmful. It'll kill your product faster than having no product owner. Mike Tyson actually said, oh, that was my husband's quote. We'll ignore him for now. Lift off. Know your customers. Taking the past into consideration. Absolutely. Team should have passion as well.
Lift off again.
Lift off again. Yeah. Past, future. Ask the real customers. Angela, I will back that up 100%. Don't ask your friends and family, do you like my idea? Of course they like your idea. Be stubborn on vision, flexible on details. Awesome. I am actually thinking I have an idea for a future webinar on liftoff, maybe. So that's my next question. What would you like future webinars on? What's cute? What's coming up for you? What would you like to learn about? What would you like us to share? So throw in some ideas and we'll take that in and we'll come up with webinars for all the topics that you come up with.
And you can even email us after the fact, Anu and KapalaConsulting.com or Doug at KapalaConsulting.com, and we'll take those ideas and look to see if we can do something.
Absolutely. So we're looking for great ideas. Yep. Thank you, Linda. That's a good one to learn more about customer needs, customer discovery. Yeah. Any other ideas you have, let us know. We will. Product road mapping. Yep. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. There you go. Agile leadership. Yes, that's a good topic, Elizabeth. Always a good topic. Road mapping, coaching up. Yeah, that's one of my favorite topics.
That's a good one, actually.
Yeah. Customer journey mapping. Yeah. I'm just going to ask you all now questions you have for me, ideas, if you want to chat. I'm here. Thank you for being here. I have the recording. We'll post the recording online as well, send you all a link. If you have access to Slack, we also do some Slack groups that we are trying to build up momentum for Scrum Masters, for product owners, and for leaders. So
I will go find those links and put them in the chat. If you want to stay on, I will put those in the chat in about 2 or 3 minutes.
Yep. So I have a couple of ideas here: coaching up, customer journey mapping, coaching product owners. So Linda, can you tell me a little bit more about any Is it specifically on something generic? What are we talking about?
Oh, first of all, thank you, Anu, for this awesome webinar. For me, it's more specifically for product owner, like maybe I know this is a webinar about product owner, but I'm thinking more about a Scrum Master coaching product owner. Like, what are some good way to approach helping the product owner to really become a great product owner?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. I can certainly I can certainly see the value in that. And I think a lot of Scrum Masters actually do struggle with that because they don't know how to or what areas to coach in. So great topic. Thank you. Personas, story maps, career pathing. Ooh, yes. Good one, Natasha. Any other questions for me? I am open to questions. If not, thank you for being here. Doug's going to give you the Slack links in a second if you don't have them. There you go.
And our email addresses.
And email addresses are in there as well. So if you want to grab our email and give us a question, one of the things I want to start doing is offering up monthly office hours through the Slack groups. So if you have a question, you pop on in during their office hour. So I'll be setting up one for April for sure, and we'll see if you have time in March. But yeah, any questions, let us know. Otherwise, thank you for being here today. This was, as many of you know, this is product ownership is close to my heart. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Anu. Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Anu. Thanks, Doug.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Anu.
Elizabeth,
Just wanted to say hi. Hello, Anu.
I miss you guys.
Miss you too.
And now I'm hoping things will, let me